Hello, my name is BJ and welcome to Let's Talk. Today we're going to talk about Poland, my trip to Warsaw, Poland in October 2017. So the whole trip was like funky, bizarre, different than my normal business trips, right? So let me just go ahead and break down this trip for you. It was October 2017. I'm going on a business trip to Warsaw, Poland. Typically, when I leave Philadelphia, I can get a direct flight from here to almost anywhere in Europe. No problem. However, for this trip, the client who paid for the flight and the accommodations as a part of the package decided that they wanted me to fly from Philadelphia to Chicago, which is about, 3 hours west? And then I had a couple hours layover. And I was on like Air Poland or Polish Air or something like that. And so finally I get on the flight. I don't have a business class seat, which is the typical agreement for flights over 6 hours. Somehow or another, this client finagled it and they gave me a regular seat. I didn't trip. It was, whatever. The good news is that there was a 3-seat row and I had the window, there was an empty seat, and then there was an older woman. And then she was cool. So I was just glad that I didn't have anyone sitting right next to me because I've got long legs. I'm a pretty big guy, over 6'2". So here I am on the flight. I start looking around, right? And I notice that I'm the only black person on the flight. Now, I'm accustomed to being in many business class and first class flights for work, and I'm the only black person. That happens a lot, especially on long haul international flights. Not so much in the States, but especially overseas. So I'm somewhat accustomed to that, a little bit. But I'm looking around as I board the plane. No black people in business class, no black people in premium economy, no black people in economy. No black people working for the airline. They were all Polish. So I look around the plane and like everyone is Polish. And apparently Chicago has a big Polish population. That's why this Air Poland or Poland Air, whatever it's called, had direct flights to Warsaw, Poland out of Chicago. So we're on the flight. I'm already kind of salty because I've had to fly backwards west to Chicago and then now going all the way back over the east coast of the U.S., over the Atlantic, on to Poland. Whatever. Finally, after many hours, I land in Warsaw, Poland. I think it was an overnight flight. These European flights typically are. So arrive there, get to the airport, collect my luggage, and typically when I walk out after picking up my luggage, there's a driver there with a sign, like 90% of the time, there's a driver with a sign or a tablet with my name on it saying, "Welcome to Warsaw, Mr. BJ, and I'm your driver." That wasn't the case this time. This client was ultra cheap. First, they put me in economy for this long haul flight, which went against my employer's policy. And then they didn't have a driver for me. I still wasn't tripping over that. I was instructed to go outside and wait for the hotel van. I was like, oh, okay. So I go outside. There's this big, like one of those 15, 20 passenger van bus type things. I don't know. It wasn't even that nice. And there was a woman standing there too. And the driver beckoned us both over. So we walked over to this minivan bus type thing. And she gets on ahead of me. And I already could sense this woman had like this energy. And if you're an African American, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's a tangible, palpable feeling that you get, this energy. And so I didn't pay any mind. I was like, I'm here for a work conference. I'm here to work and do a good job and go back home. So she's going to the same hotel I am. She gets on this van, talks to the driver, and she's telling him, I need a private car. I don't want to be on this bus. And she kind of like glances over her shoulder at me, and I'm like, lady, I don't know you and you don't know me. So all I know is apparently we're both going to the same place. At this point, I didn't know she was coming for the same conference that I was, and neither did she know that we were going for the same conference. At some point, after a few minutes of going back and forth with the driver, explaining to her that this is the transportation to the hotel. If you want something private, you're going to have to call a taxi or an Uber yourself, lady. So she sat herself down on the front row right behind the driver like she needed to be protected. And I sat a few rows back. The driver put our luggage in the back of the van, and we head off to the hotel. It's about a 20-minute ride. On the ride there, I'm looking around, and there's all these like sort of Cold War concrete buildings in gray and beige, very like old school communist looking, no elaborate architecture, nothing interesting to look at. And I'm just kind of looking out of the windows, and after about 20 minutes, we arrive at the hotel. And the hotel is like only a few years old. I think it was 2 or 3 years old at that time. It was almost a brand new Marriott hotel, all glass, state of the art, in stark contrast to all these old gray looking buildings we had seen on the way in from the airport. So she gets out, the guy gives her bag, I get out, he gives me my bag, and she's a few steps ahead of me walking in. And as I walk in, everyone ignores her and they all come running to me and, Mr. BJ, we've been waiting for you. We need you to go on stage to speak in about an hour. So the woman looks back over her shoulder and her face turns beet red. And she's like, I could see in her face like, holy crap, I've been so rude. I didn't even speak to this guy. And he's a featured speaker at this conference. Inside she died a little bit. And inside I was rejoicing like, yeah. Anyway, I'm like, are you kidding me? I've got to speak within an hour? And they're like, yeah. So I'm thinking there must have been a scheduling mix-up, because typically when I would arrive for a conference to present, I would get there the day before. That would give me time to rest up, practice or rehearse my PowerPoint, my presentation, etc., and then go in the next day and do the trainings. That was not the case this time. This client had scheduled for me to go on stage within an hour of arriving. So I had to rush up to my room. The valet guy came, the bellman, he came, he got my bags and the key, took me up to my room. She's still standing over there trying to register for the conference. They already had everything taken care of because they were expecting me and wanted me to be on stage fairly quickly. So the guy took me up to my room, checked me in, showed me all the features of the room. I hopped in the shower, threw on my suit and tie and everything, and quickly went over my presentation. And then within 45 minutes, I was downstairs in the main ballroom on stage presenting in front of a couple hundred people. I was like, wow. It was crazy. I was jet lagged. I was hungry. My throat was parched. None of that mattered. I had to be on stage. I had to do my first presentation. So I did that. As soon as I was done, I went back to my room. Now, typically, when I'm done with my presentation, I would sit in the room and at least stay for a while to answer questions or listen to other presentations from other people that were presenting at the conference. But I was wiped out from that overnight flight to Europe. So I went back to my room, got a few hours rest, and then that evening I went down for dinner. Once you arrive at these conferences, they give you like an itinerary. It tells you when you're going to have breakfast, when you're going to have lunch and dinner, and then when all the different speaker sessions are throughout the conference. And it will usually have my presentation times highlighted in red or yellow, so I knew when I needed to speak, what time to be downstairs, etc., etc. And also, they oftentimes would have rehearsals at these conferences as well with all the speakers, just to make sure they'd have a technical rehearsal to make sure if you had, a PowerPoint presentation or a video or anything, that it was all set up and working properly. Anyway, I went upstairs, like I said, I got some rest, went back down for dinner that evening, and they had it was Poland, so they had every kind of pierogi that you could think of. I'd never seen so many different kinds of pierogi. I wasn't a huge fan of the food, and I'm not saying they didn't have good food in Poland, but I ate most of my meals at the hotel. And at that particular hotel, even though it was a very nice hotel, new and posh, the food was mediocre. So at any rate, we're there that evening. I get my food because it was a buffet style, and there was a host table from the pharmaceutical company. So all the big wigs from the pharmaceutical company were sitting there, and they had seen me speak earlier that afternoon. So they're beckoning, oh, please come and join us at the head table. So I went over to join them. And again, I look over my shoulder, and this woman that had been on the hotel van earlier and given all this attitude, who didn't even speak or acknowledge me, she saw me go sit at the head table with all the big wigs, and again her face turned beet red, and I was just like, yeah. So I don't know why, but it just excited me to see her suffering. So yeah, I went, sat down with them, had a meal, enjoyed their company, had some wine, and then I went back up and I got a good night's sleep. The next day I had more presentations, and then that evening I decided not to join the clients for dinner because, again, they were dining in the hotel and the hotel food was just not all that. So I had noticed across the street that there was this sort of flashy restaurant, one of these new places with lots of glass, and you could see like the open kitchen with the chef in the white coat and the hat, and they have like the big flames going, and you could see them chopping and dicing and cooking. So I said, I'm gonna go try that out. So I didn't go eat with the clients that second night. I went across the street to this nice restaurant, nice looking restaurant, and they had asked me if I wanted to sit in the dining room. Well, the dining room had these huge tables, and it was just me. So I opted to sit at the bar. So I sat at the bar, I looked at the menu, and I didn't know what anything was. My first time in Poland. So I ordered straightforward a burger and fries, and a salad, and I asked for my burger to be well done. Simple, right? And I think I had a Coke or something, or maybe even a beer. I think it was a beer, a Polish beer. So, because I did like to try different beers in different countries. I'm not a huge beer drinker, but that was one of the things I would do if I was in a new country. So I'm waiting about 15 minutes or so to bring over my burger, my salad, my fries, and they had already brought me the beer earlier. And I've learned from traveling, because I like my meat well done, I always cut it, especially a burger, I cut it in half as soon as I get it. Man, I cut the burger in half. So here's the burger I'm cutting with the knife, and blood just comes gushing out from the burger. I don't like my meat bloody. I like my meat well done. I like the cow to no longer be mooing. I like it dead. And I know that there's a lot of people that have a serious issue with well done meat. I respect that. But I like my meat well done. Juicy and well done. There are some real chefs that can make a juicy, well-done piece of meat. There aren't many chefs who can do it, in my experience, but there are some out there. At any rate, I cut the burger open. Blood comes gushing out. I'm just like, are you kidding me? So I caught the attention of the waiter. He came back over. I explained to him. He didn't understand much English. I didn't understand much Polish. And I got my phone out. I think I had Google Translator or whatever translator was available at that time on my phone. And he's like, oh, okay. So he took the plate back to the kitchen, and I could see him talking to the chef. The kitchen was like, I don't know, 25 feet away down a long sort of corridor, but remember, it's open so I can see them. And the chef starts doing things with his hands. You can see the hat moving. And so then the chef comes back down with the plate and the burger, sits it in front of me, and says in his broken English, I don't cook well done. This is as well done as I will make it. I said, well, in that case, I don't want it. I don't like my meat raw. I don't like my meat bloody. So he said, oh, the waiter will take care of it. So the waiter came back. He told him something in Polish, and the waiter took the burger back. Whatever they did with it, I don't care. I ate the fries, the salad, and I finished my beer. And then I went back across the street to the hotel, unfulfilled with another meal in Poland. Whatever. So another thing I had noticed while I was in Poland is that I was the only black person I saw in the airport. In the 3 days I was in the city, I was like, wait a minute. I've been a lot of places, but I always find at least one or two black people somewhere. I can tell you through my travels, you're always going to find some Nigerians, some Kenyans, or some Sudanese people somewhere. If you're traveling, you'll find one of those three groups. It's usually Nigerians, but if not them, you'll find Kenyans or Sudanese. That's just the way the world is. Anyway, I didn't find any of them. And if you're an African American in particular, it's sort of an eerie feeling when you look around and realize you're the only one. It's just this, I can't explain it. If you're not African American, you may not understand. But if you are, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So anyway, interesting. So the next few days go, the third day comes, the conference ends, and the hotel this time provides a much nicer coach bus to take the conference attendees all back to the airport at the same time. So it was one of those big buses. I don't know, it might have held 50, 60 people, something like that. And I'm on the bus sitting by a window, and I'm looking out the window, and I'm just kind of like, this whole trip was a bust, you know? The hotel was nice as far as the room and the decor of the hotel because it was new and kind of fancy, but the food wasn't good. I didn't have much time for sightseeing because I was doing a lot of presentations and rehearsals, and the clients wanted my time, which is, they paid for my time, so they had me, and that was that. So I'm on this bus, and I'm looking out the window, and we're heading out of the area that we were in. And I don't remember the name of the area. But as we're driving out, I'm looking out the window with my head just kind of like, oh, and I saw a black man. And I was like, oh my God, after 3 days in Warsaw, Poland, I finally see another black person and I'm leaving. I was so excited, y'all. I took my camera out. I don't know if it was my mobile phone or the whatever. And I took a picture. I'm going to try to insert that picture at the end of the video because I want you guys to see it. That's how hyped I was. So I was like, there are other black people in Warsaw. Anyway, after I left, I did some research and found out that there is a small population of African students there that study at the universities in Warsaw. So, yeah, I wasn't the only one. I just didn't see them because of where I was at. So, yeah, that whole trip was... It was interesting. It was not one of my most, exciting trips, but I got to go to Warsaw, Poland. I can say that I've been to Warsaw, Poland. So when I went back, I had to take that long flight from Warsaw to Chicago and then Chicago back to Philadelphia. And I eventually got home, and I was so glad to be home and done with that trip. So that was my business trip to Warsaw, Poland. I hope you found that story interesting. If you did, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Tell your friends about my videos. I'm going to be doing more on this travel series. I've been to a lot of places, so I've got a lot to talk about. Like I mentioned before, as we get closer to the election, I'm going to dive into some topics about the presidential election. I'm going to be talking about spiritual topics. And if you guys have suggestions for topics, let me know. Someone did ask me about hotels in the comments on a recent video, but I need you to tell me exactly what you want to know about hotels, because I was privileged to stay in a lot of really nice places because the clients were paying, and typically they were 4 or 5 star and sometimes even nicer than that. So yeah, let me know what exactly you want to know about the hotels, and I'll be glad to dive into that. Thanks for your time. Have a great evening, and I'll be back on Thursday. Remember, my motto is that self-care is critical and must be ongoing. Peace.